Good evening, everyone. I trust that you are able to hear me just fine and that you're able to see your screens. I sure hope so. We are getting started here just a little bit late. We got into our Zoom meeting room, and for some unknown reason, it knocked us out of the room. And so a moment of mild panic, thinking that we weren't actually in the meeting, but here we are. And we're going to spend a little bit of time here together. We will have you back to doing your normal activities by 9 o'clock at the latest. I'm tempted to say that I promise we will have you out of here by 9 o'clock, but I would rather under promise and over deliver. So let's get rolling here. Firstly, I'm Dr. Bob Cannon. I'm the headmaster of Veritas Scholars Academy. I have been in this role now for 11 years, and it's been my absolute joy to see us carrying out our mission as a school. I'm going to roll through some slides here. In fact, the next slide is our agenda. I am not going to cover all of the items on this agenda because you can only listen to me talk for so long before you would surely want to hear other members of our team contribute to this conversation. And I'm looking forward to your meeting them because I work with some really wonderful people here. The agenda in short order is talking a little bit about what classical education actually is, what it looks like in real life. Late to the game is to suggest that you may not have a third grader who's looking for a classical education with Veritas. You might have a seventh grader or even a ninth or a 10th grader, and you think that doing something a little different from what you have been doing, whether it's homeschooling or in another school environment, you may want to make a transition a bit later in your students' academic progress, and that's okay. We work with families all the time who are making a transition to us in the students' later educational years. We'll talk with you a little bit about our live classes for both full-time and part-time students. The Diploma program is an option that you're surely going to want to hear about. Community is on the agenda. We'll ask our Dean of Students to say a few words about community here at VSA. Sometimes we have folks who will say, you're virtual, you're online. How could your students possibly have a robust community? You might be surprised. We'll talk just a bit about summer courses and how that has grown over the years. That's pretty exciting to me as I've watched that happen. And the impact of a VSA education, at the very least, by sharing with you a testimonial of one of the mothers of our students. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end for you to ask some questions. And we even have a giveaway. So look forward to that. I think that's our strategy to keep you here for the whole meeting. All right. What is classical education? And you're going to see a couple or a few slides on this topic. So I'm going to roll through here at a reasonable pace. And you may hear me say similar things in different ways. And I might not even touch everything that's on these slides. The last thing that I want to do is to actually read you the slides. That's not what a terrific educator will do necessarily. So I'll keep this to the point, okay? Tongue-in-cheek, not about togas and papyrus, although we do think that Rome and Greece have had an impact on some of the best education that has been offered in history. Excuse me, the classical model is an absolutely wonderful model of education. And of course, I think it's our responsibility as classical educators to persuade you to see just how valuable it is. And we would argue it is certainly one of the best, if not the best way to educate young minds. We're looking to the past. We're making application to the present and even the future. And we want for students to know what they think, why they think it, and to learn how to be articulate. in their thoughts. And again, you'll hear just a little more about that in the upcoming couple slides. This is how classical education is structured. This diagram off to the right side of the screen is a nice picture, a word picture with the three stages of the trivium, what we believe to be foundational in classical education. The grammar stage is an opportunity for young students who are in grade school, as you may call it, to learn lots and lots of information. The logic stage, also referred to as the dialectic stage, is where students learn how to understand that information which they have memorized in their grammar school years. And then in the rhetoric stage, our students who are in high school are learning how to be wise in their application of that knowledge that they have gained and what they understand about that knowledge. On to the next screen, I'll talk about that just a little bit more. Again, I promise not to read to you what's on these, but if you look off to the far right where you see rhetoric in blue, one of the last things that's said in that block is that the trivium is knowing the facts, presenting the facts in a logical argument, and doing so graciously and convincingly. Knowing the facts is the grammar stage, and some people have referred to this process, even in a not so gracious way, by referring to it as drill and kill. But I can assure you that's not what our students encounter. In fact, when they're learning these facts, they're doing so oftentimes by singing songs, by reciting chants, by rhyming. How many of you know the ABCs? And that is because when you were in grammar school, if you know the song that goes with the ABCs, that's how you learned the ABCs. Uh, I personally loved my times tables when I was in grammar school. I was not educated in a classical environment or a classical academy per se, but I think that the private school that I went to when I was a child um, was more classical than they may have even realized. And I remember things like the times tables because of the manner in which that information was presented to me. And my teachers made it fun. I found it engaging and I really enjoyed learning. The next stage, which is the logic stage or dialectic stage, is what many people would call middle school. And this is where you learn, as we said on the previous slide, to understand that information that you gained in the grammar stage. It's in the logic stage where we say that children are naturally inclined to argue. And so I will often say to our teachers who are teaching these logic stage grades, set your students up. And I say that with the kindest intention. But we know that because our students have a tendency, actually all children have a tendency, when they reach a certain age, to want to challenge. They want to challenge your thinking as parents. They want to challenge their siblings' thinking. They're challenging their friends. Because this is the way that they have been naturally developed, this is by design, we take that natural proclivity to argue or to have those conversations, and we teach our students how to do it in a meaningful way, in a respectful way. We actually leverage this natural design so that they can learn through it. And then when they reach the rhetoric stage, ultimately, we want for our students to graduate our academy being articulate, being persuasive, and let me clarify, not to win arguments, but rather to have gracious conversations with their peers and with others in a way that they have an impact. We want our students to have an impact on those around them and even broader reaching on the world. I have had many conversations with adults whom I have met over time who have encountered children or adolescents who are classically educated. And I universally and very consistently hear that child or that young man, that young woman is impressive. And sometimes they aren't even able to put their finger on why. And I can tell you that time and time again, I discover that these children are classically educated. Moving on to our next slide. This is Gabriel. Gabriel is, as you see, the senior class president from the 23-24 school year. And these are some of the skills that are developed in a classically minded or classically educated student. You'll hear the words critical thinking thrown around in a lot of environments. I've been in environments, both at the K-12 level and in higher education, at the collegiate level, where this kind of language is present, it's often used. I can tell you that in this environment, we mean it, we see it actually practiced, and to break it down in the simplest of terms, we're teaching our students how to think well. We want our students to think well. That's what critical thinking is about. We also want them to be analysts of a sort. We want them to not only just learn information, take it at a superficial level and absorb it and believe that it's true. No, we want them to quote the scriptures, we want them to test all things. And in that testing, they discover that the truth stands up to scrutiny. We have our students read the great books of Western civilization. This is an integrated package of literature, history, and theology. It's extraordinary. I have run the list of the great books that our students read in the omnibus curriculum, as we call it, by some faculty friends at the collegiate level. And more than once, I've had collegiate professors look at this list of books from 7th through 12th grades, those 6 years of our students' education. And they look at the list and they shake their heads and they smile and they say, "You have your students read all these books?" And yes, they not only read them, but they discuss them with the oversight or the shepherding of our omnibus teachers, and they have wonderful peer-to-peer interactions and conversations. It's one of the most valuable things we offer. We offer other wonderful courses here like Latin and logic and rhetoric, but the omnibus curriculum in the great books of Western civilization is it's a flagship of sorts. It's like the aircraft carrier in our fleet. Students are encouraged to question and analyze, as I said, Socratic discussions where we're asking them meaningful questions that get them to think, which is a part of developing critical thinking. The students learn how to write persuasive essays, and yes, even on controversial topics, our students, when they are reading the great books of Western civilization and exploring the other subjects that we teach here, they are not just reading the books of the Bible, because all truth is God's truth. We believe that all the things in this world that are good and true and beautiful are authored by the Lord. And so we approach matters in that way. And in fact, you can see that God pervades every academic subject, as we say in the last bullet point. And we believe that we honor him in teaching our students these subjects through the lens of the scriptures. With that, as I promised you, I'm going to turn this over to one of my colleagues. Her name is Susan Gimity. She is about as energetic as any of us. And Susan might even tell you a story that she might integrate about her own children having studied here and the wonderful outcomes that she and her family have even experienced. But Susan is one of our academic advisors, so she is super knowledgeable about what we do. And I'm going to turn it over to her here. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Bob. So yes, I am an academic advisor here at Veritas. I'm also the proud mom of 4 Veritas graduates. So I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit more about classical education and also about how Veritas could maybe be a good fit for your family. So oftentimes one of the first questions I get is, when should I start classical education? And I say it's never too late to start. So that could be 2nd grader, 5th grader, 8th grader, 11th grader, because most likely, depending on where you go to college, this will be your only opportunity to ever study in a way that Dr. Cannon just described. The great books, the classics, logic, rhetoric, persuasion, things like that. So if you have a young one, then let's start it. And it's early childhood. It's an ideal way for fostering foundational skills. The grammar school years, in my mind, are the perfect time, anywhere from K to 6. Again, you might have a 6th grader. That's a perfect time to start. That's when I started my oldest in classical education. Middle school, certainly is a good entry point. And the beautiful thing about classical education is there's just many different on-ramps. Every single day I bring in new students to Veritas who'll start in the fall or the next year. And today I had a 7th grader, I had an 8th grader, I had a 3rd grader. And so it doesn't really matter when you want to start. It's just a matter of when you feel like you can make that commitment. So I would say the earlier, it's going to lead toward more exposure, but really any exposure is going to be beneficial. Back in the 40s, Dorothy Sayers wrote something entitled The Lost Tools of Learning. And it kind of got tabled for years and years, actually decades. And then someone picked it back up in the 70s and ended up starting a school. And now in this classical Christian education genre, there's actually thousands of schools in the country. And so it's gained huge popularity. And if you are piqued by what I have said, or Dr. Cannon said, I would actually grab this. It's a very small little book. You could read it in an evening and just get your head around a little bit more what classical education is about. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is, would Veritas be able to play a part in this? And so when here is a picture of graduation. We graduate about 100 from all over the world. And I think as I look at our mission statement here, restoring culture to Christ, one young heart and mind at a time. And I've worked with over 1,000 students now here at Veritas as an academic advisor. And I can say, I feel like we're doing a very good job at restoring our culture to Christ, one young heart and mind at a time. So could Veritas be a good fit for you? That could be, you have a 3rd grader, 6th grader, 8th grader, you want full-time, you want part-time, you want a transcript, you want help getting into college. The beautiful thing is we can do all. Everything I just mentioned, we can do. I was meeting with a family yesterday who had been with us and then left for a year because he thought he needed to have a little bit more in-person community. And now he's back. And he made this quote to me yesterday. He said, Susan, the education and instructors at Veritas are unmatched. Those were his exact words. And so I love that we can customize it. His kids are pretty high in math, and he doesn't want his 5th grader just bored out of his mind sitting in a traditional 5th grade class. And because he's a couple of years ahead of 5th grade math. So here at Veritas, we can customize that education to exactly what you might need. The next slide is my own journey. Dr. Cannon mentioned this a little bit. My own journey began with Michael. Michael is this guy right here. And so my short story is when I was homeschooling my kids, I homeschooled them from the ground up. I am a teacher by trade, but once I had Michael, when he was in 6th grade, I had a 6th grader, 4th grader, 2nd grader, and kindergartner. And I made the startling conclusion I needed some help. So at the time, I had a friend who taught at Veritas. She thought it would be a good fit, so we plopped Michael in. Michael, at that point, had no Latin, no logic, no classical training, and he did beautifully. He graduated 8 years ago, and since then, he's finished undergrad, and he's a couple months away from finishing dental school. My next one is Madison. She's over here on the back row, and she graduated 6 years ago, and she has also finished her undergrad, and she is a school teacher now. Then I have Nick. He got the tall genes in the family, and he is almost finished with college. He is electrical engineering, and he's also a collegiate golfer. That's another thing Veritas pairs very well with is NCAA. If you have an athlete who maybe you're just homeschooling, I have a friend who has a daughter who plays volleyball, and she was telling me over the summer, Susan, it took me months to jump through all the NCAA hoops to get her child ready to be able to play NCAA volleyball. That's because she just did hodgepodge homeschooling. Here at Veritas, we really do it all. You fill out a form that will take you less than 5 minutes, and then we come right behind you and do it all. And that's what Nick did. He is a collegiate golfer, and he is poised to graduate in May. Last is Grace. Grace graduated a year and a half ago. She's living her best life, and she's in college studying finance. So obviously, Veritas is near and dear to my heart. I always tell my families, I didn't just dream this up or find a remote job finally in my field. We've given our heart and soul to Veritas for 15 years. My husband routinely tells me, quote, I feel like Veritas was one of the top 3 best parenting decisions we've ever made. So Veritas is what has made my kids into who they are today. Next slide. We have students from all over the world. I mentioned that. Back to this slide, I should mention 2 of Madison's friends right here that I do like to point out. This girl right here is Carter from Saudi Arabia, and this girl right here is Brooklyn from Ecuador. So your students would have classmates from all over the world and teachers from all over the world. That's why we can hire the very best teachers, is because we are not bound by geography. And our teachers are not the star basketball coach that we're a little reluctant to cut bait with. We can hire the very best teachers from all over the world. And the wonderful thing is they come and share their stories. We have one teacher who lives in Alaska that I just love hearing her story regularly and what she's doing there. Next, we send graduates to, you name it, we've sent them there, from military academies to Ivy Leagues to Christian colleges to places like Hillsdale that currently have a 12% acceptance rate. Our transcripts compete very well at the collegiate level. I help about 50 kids get into college every year, and many, many of them receive full ride scholarships based solely on the accredited transcript you would get if you were a diploma student. So what can this look like? The first thing is we have live classes. So the live class platform is Adobe. It's not Zoom, but it's kind of similar, but it's quite a bit more interactive. And you see pictures on the right that show one particular class and the teacher's asking them to hold up their book, and they took a little class photo. So let's look at this. This is really the brass tacks of what our school looks like day to day. The first thing is we are available full-time and part-time. What does that look like? Full-time, you could take all your classes with us. And that would mean that a teacher is doing all the instruction and most of the grading. And so that takes all of that weight off a parent and maybe the season of life that you're in. Or you're like, hey, I love what I do. I love homeschooling my own kids, but I do not want to teach chemistry. Well, you just take 1 or 2 classes. We call that moonlighting here. And we have thousands of part-time students who are just taking 1 class, 2 classes, or something super random, like we offer biotechnology in the summer. Please tell me what high school is offering biotechnology. You're not going to get that. The teacher has a PhD. He's phenomenal. And we also offer random classes. As a part-time student, you can take some of those random classes. As Dr. Cannon mentioned, you could take them during the school year, or you can take them in the summer. And that's just really what you like to do. You don't have to take in the summer to graduate with us, but some like to take in a few in the summer to lighten the load in the school year. We have 175 expert teachers. That's back to that family I told you about earlier. When he said, quote, the teachers at Veritas are unmatched. And that goes back to the map. That's because we can hire from all over the world. I would expect our teachers to be the absolute cream of the crop because we're not bound by geography. We do have the university model, so that means your classes meet 2 times a week. So they would either meet Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. We go for 32 weeks. Our school year starts in September and ends the end of May. One big part of our school is honors levels courses. In the school down the street where you live, typically you have to be in the honors track to take honors courses. That is not how Veritas works. Like our biology, we only offer honors biology. So if you were to get an A in an honors course, you get a bump in your GPA and you would get a 5.0 for that class instead of a 4.0. When I was back in school, 4.0 was perfect. That meant you had straight A's, blah, blah. No longer is that the case. Schools are rewarding you now for taking harder courses. And so we have many, 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 dozens and dozens. Most of our classes are at the honors level. And then we have a really cool dual enrollment program. Dual enrollment means that you take a high school course, you pay an extra fee, you don't do any more work, and you get college credit. All of my kids took in 30 or more dual enrollment credits into college. What can you do with those? You could shave a year off college. You could pick up a double major, like Mr. Dentist in my family. He was a finance major and a pre-med major, and he did that in 4 years. You could do what my younger son did. He was electrical engineering and a collegiate golfer. At his school, they do not allow STEM majors to be athletes. And so we met with the golf coach and we said, hey, he's bringing in 33 credit hours. So instead of taking 17 a semester, he'll be down to more like 14. Would you consider this? He acquiesced. He said, okay, begrudgingly, reminds us about it every time we meet with him because, or rub shoulders with him because he says, you know, if he wasn't engineering, he could practice more. But I have to say, Nick called us last month and said, Mom, you wouldn't believe this. Coach had the whole team together and he was actually proud of me that I've done and almost finished my electrical engineering degree. So that's what Nick was able to do with his dual enrollment. We also offer AP courses as well. We estimate that outside work is going to take, your homework is going to take about 3 to 6 hours per week per course. That's not per class, that's per course. So like if you want to take Spanish 2 with us, you would be in class an hour and a half twice a week. And then you'd have about 3 to 4 hours of homework, maybe a little bit more if it's a test or week or something like that. I do want to mention here while we're on foreign languages, we offer an amazing palette of foreign languages. We offer Spanish 1 all the way through 4. We offer French all the way through 4. And those Spanish 3, French 3, German 3, those look really impressive on a high school transcript. Those are things that can really differentiate you at the college level. Another thing, and Dr. Cannon touched on this, is active participation in classes. We do not let your kid open up a second screen and play Minecraft or Fortnite as much as they might like to. 20% of your child's grade, this is part-time, full-time students, it doesn't matter, about 20% will be participation. So what does that mean? That means your kid will be on webcam, your kid will be raising their hand, the teacher might say, you know, which is bigger, 3/4 or 2/3, and you might go on the board and solve that. And that is what participation is going to look like. You're going to be put in groups and maybe debate something. You're going to be giving speeches, presentations. You'll be doing labs together. Oftentimes, my daughter was dissecting a shark on our kitchen counter with all of her marine biology classmates, and teacher was directing that. Thank goodness I did not have to do that. So that's that active participation where, believe it or not, we live in this digital world and your student will feel community even in an online class. We do distribute course assignment sheets. These really set our school apart. The very first day of class, your student will get every assignment that they're going to have for the whole year. So there's no up jumps the rabbit stuff. It's not, oh, the teacher must be in a bad mood and slapped us with extra homework. It's all just laid out perfectly right at the beginning of the year. For planners like me, I love that. Lastly, or second to last, build mentoring by other adults. This was key. I think I came to the conclusion around 7th or 8th grade with many of my children that other adults could take them further in areas that I could not. For example, history. I'm a math science girl. I could teach math all day long and I'd be super happy doing it. History wasn't really my thing. I was taught just very factual history in high school, and I never knew how anything connected to anything else. So when I went to start homeschooling my own kids, I said, there's got to be a better way. This is dumb. You can Google a fact on your phone in 1 second. Let's be teaching them how to think critically, how to look at broad trends and understand the history. And so that's what these omnibus teachers did for my kids. And I loved it because I wasn't overly interested in that. And so I feel like being able to be mentored by other adults is huge. Teacher grades the student work, they offer comments, they're able to say, you know, this paragraph, Michael, is really awkward. This doesn't make sense. Whereas if I wrote that on Michael's paper, he'd be like, Mom, it makes perfect sense. I don't get it why you don't think it makes sense. And so I love it that another person can take my kid to the next level in an area that maybe I'm less skilled in. And building community, we've already discussed. So my last slide is this. Is maybe our full-time program for you. So remember, I described part-time. Mom doesn't want to teach chemistry. Mom doesn't want to teach pre-calc, Spanish 3, logic, whatever it is, and you just moonlight with us. Or maybe that biotech course has piqued your interest. You already have a split screen up and you're trying to figure out when it meets. Well, it's a summer class and it meets in summer A and summer B. Or you might thinking, wow, Susan, your story is compelling. What your own kids did is compelling. And you might be more interested in our full-time program. And our full-time program is where you would get somebody like me, an academic advisor. We have about a dozen on staff. And we will, quote, hold your hand as much as you want it held. I say that to my families every single day. I will hold your hand as much as you want it held. And so that is a big part of the full-time program, is having an advisor like me who's gone before you, who knows the ropes and could help you along. Another thing the full-time program does is an accredited transcript. We are accredited by Middle States Association. Middle States Association is who accredits the big boys. We're very proud of our accreditation, and it looks very impressive on a transcript. That is your golden ticket to get to college. And in my mind, just that accredited transcript is worth every penny of the diploma program. If your child is not 9th through 12th, then they will get annual report cards, which is also really nice. If you live in a state like Colorado and have to submit a report card or grades every year, it's nice. You don't have to mess with that. We do it. You just send it on to the state. We also have a lovely, stunning graduation every Friday after Memorial Day. That was the collage I showed you of all my kids, and it's some of the most memorable days of my life to watch my kids cross that stage. And it is also one of the most memorable days of my life, watching the 50, 60 graduates that I have helped all along the way walk across that graduation stage. We also provide grade tracking. Truth be told, total nerd, all I do every Saturday morning is go through students' grades, and I look at every single one of my kids and students and where they are, and I'll email them, hey, Mom, did you see Johnny missed turning in the last 2 math quizzes? His grade's starting to suffer. Could you check in with him? Or, hey, I know you were on vacation. I'm sure you had an extension, but I'm just making sure you're getting that exam in, et cetera. So that, again, takes a lot off you, and that puts it on my back, and that's that grade tracking. You'll also be hearing from teachers. Teachers all the time will reach out to parents and help them along. Seminar access. We put on a lot of cool seminars only for diploma families. Last week, I put on a seminar how to boost your standardized test scores. I spent about 45 minutes sharing very specific strategies on how to boost a standardized test score. And we offer seminars every month on different topics that are only accessible for diploma students. Then I think this is maybe one of the most significant benefits, and that's the intangible. Assure requirements are met. We will help you do that, and we will make sure, like South Carolina, you need a random economics credit. And so the parent will say, hey, I need a random economics credit. Well, we offer economics, and we'll make sure you get that so you can comply with your own state. We also will help things like Common App. I was working in the Common App earlier today. I have, I think, 36 students on the Common App, and I was submitting mid-year reports on the Common App. And what is the Common App? It's the application that gets you into college. And so those are things that we do in the wings that you might not even totally realize how much we actually do as an academic advisor to help get your child across the finish line. We write recommendation letters. I write very robust recommendation letters. Teachers write recommendation letters. That's a big part of our full-time program. Those recommendation letters often is what might tip a student over to gain a big college scholarship. I want to close my time with just this quote. This is Sharon. This gal lives actually in the Dominican Republic, and she wrote to me and said, thank you, Susan, for always being there for us. You are one of the reasons I have stuck with homeschooling, knowing that you are just an email away with good advice when I have needed it. Many blessings to your and yours. And if I'm honest, I get some version of this note at least twice a week, every week of the year. And I love it. I am here to help you be successful. As I said, hold your hand as much as you want it held as an academic advisor. So if this piques your interest, we're going to have questions at the end. What does full-time diploma look like? And I will answer specific questions then. I'm now going to turn it over to our Dean of Students, Miss King, and she's going to continue on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As Dr. Cannon has mentioned, and as Susan mentioned, the keyword community. So you see the picture of all of these students up here. These are actually our students, graduates of ours. This is not a stock photo that we got online and paid some licensing for. These are actually ours. So when we think about community and we think about this online school, how does that actually look like? You saw the photo on one of the previous slides where you had all of these students in class. You can see them up on webcam, and that is part of it. Being part of a live class and having live class discussions, some people think that you just wouldn't establish a real relationship with one another, that maybe the students and the teacher would feel some kind of disconnect. But I've been a teacher with VSA for 15 years, and I can tell you that every single year it surprises me how much the students bond together. And there are different ways that we see how that works. Some of that, as you can see up here on the screen, there are multiple clubs that we offer that are available different times of the day, just depending on your interest and depending on when the club is offered. The meeting day and times are available under the course listings. So if you go into the course listings and you're trying to look for one of these clubs, you'll be able to access that information there. So you see that we have secondary clubs. We also have started grammar level clubs. I teach a 5th grade literature class, and every week I have a group of girls that come into class, and about 10 minutes before class begins, they are typing together in the chat box. Clearly, I'm paying attention to what's going on, so it's not anything that's unsupervised. And they're talking about what amazing time they had at baking club. How did your brownies turn out? My cookies were the best. And these children are so excited, not just to be in class, which they are because they love being in class together, but they are so excited to talk about the experience that they had in their baking club. So clubs are just a wonderful way to engage the kids with people that they're familiar with. So you've got your people from classes that are going to be in these clubs with them, and they just really enjoy spending time together. You also see in the middle column, you see community. So we do have focused attention on building community among our students. One of those ways is called Student Commons. That's the first on the list under community. Student Commons is a chat platform that is monitored by student leaders. We'll talk about student leadership here shortly, but by these student moderators. And this is a platform where students can, post jokes or memes, or they can have debate about different topics. They can discuss homework. They can discuss all kinds of things. And it is moderated because we want to make sure, as we are restoring our culture one heart and soul and mind at a time, we want to make sure that the conversations are God honoring. We do want to make sure that there's no inappropriate content that makes its way onto those pages. So Student Commons chat platform, it is divided by age group. So you're not going to have a third grader that is going to be chatting with a 12th grader. We're not going to allow anything like that. We also have student connections. As Susan was just talking about the diploma program for full-time students, the student connections groups are specific to the diploma students. So they are able to be on Student Commons, which is the school-wide for third grade and up. And then student connections is by grade level. So they'll be able to have more discussions about the different things that they're experiencing as diploma students. And again, it's about building community with one another. We'll talk about end of year gathering on the next screen. We'll also talk about local VSA groups. So we want to not only connect students and have them interact with one another during class, but we also want families to be able to connect with one another. So we have regional community groups. People can sign up if they would like to participate. It is not a forced sign up, but people are able to sign up, and then they can be connected with other people in their basic geographical region. Another example, even if it's not geographical, there is a C.S. Lewis presentation that's going to be happening in North Carolina. So one of our teachers posted about that. I heard more information about that. I put it out school-wide. And so maybe there will be people that just happen to be in North Carolina or happen to be in Virginia when that presentation is going on. And so by connecting people, they can actually get together in those different locations, even if they live in different states. So it's really neat to see people be able to connect with, they would have a directory for those community groups. And then we also have field trips and mission trips. We'll talk about that on the next screen as well. In the far right-hand column, we do also allow our students to have multiple opportunities for leadership. As Susan was talking about transcripts and what looks good on a transcript, be it a third or fourth year in a language, or if it's, just the intense academics that they have taken, we also know that leadership is not only beneficial for the student by their transcript, but it's also a way for them to actually grow as people. And as we move out of our homes into the college or into the workforce, we want our students to be solid leaders and to understand what good leadership actually looks like. So we do have National Honor Society. That in and of itself, I'm sure most of you that are here are familiar with the National Honor Society. We have a team of officers in there. They help run meetings. They are going to facilitate a lot of the activity that goes on with NHS. We also have student government. That ties in with student connections. So student connections, those diploma students, student government are officers within each of those grades. So we have a president, a vice president, and a secretary. As an online school, we don't need a treasurer. They don't deal with any money, so we leave that position out of there. But in student government, these students they meet bi-monthly or bi-weekly rather, and they plan the meeting. They study scripture together. They have devotionals together. They plan different activities. Maybe they have service projects. There have been some of our student government leaders who have organized different like not box tops for education, but the shoebox at Christmas. They've been able to do different fundraising for people who are in need with specific mission fields and things like that. So a lot of different ways that they interact with one another and then pull their grade in, whether it's, 12th grade or 10th grade or 7th grade or so on, they pull them in and they get them engaged. As I had mentioned before on Student Commons, we have moderators. So student moderators are a group of students. We have anywhere from 30 to 40 moderators that are watching over all of those discussions that happen on that Student Commons platform. And they are watching to make sure that people are being respectful, making sure there's no inappropriate content, making sure that everything is running smoothly, even just technologically it's running smoothly. And those moderators, they have to go through an application process. They have at least one interview, and then they have to be approved to become a moderator. So it's not that anyone can just show up and they say, I would like to do this, and then we grant them access to the page. They all have to go through a very specific process. Our student mentors are part of Student Commons. They also serve the entire school on our student help desk. So if students are struggling with maybe technological issues, I can't find my password, what do I do? Or maybe even there are some integrity issues. We've had students come to the help desk that have said, I cheated on a test and I'm afraid to tell my teacher and I'm afraid to tell my parents. So these mentors are other students at VSA who have a heart for God, a heart for serving others, and they help give them wise counsel. Now, as the Dean of Students, I'm also there in the background. I'm watching to see how these conversations go. I'm always there to give support, but it's amazing to see how our student mentors, they'll pray with the students that call in, they'll provide them with scripture. Maybe they'll just provide them with very practical advice on how to study for a test or what to do about a particular assignment or how to contact a teacher. How do I tell my teacher that I need extra help? And they will help guide them through that. Our mentors are juniors and seniors, so they have experience with Veritas. It's not like these are young students trying to guide and mentor other, older students or younger students. So those are really amazing ways that our students are engaged and have to go through a pretty grueling process to gain one of those positions. We also have what we call VSA TAD. I'm not sure what that drawing is there. Let me see if I can get that erased off of there. I'm not sure what's happening. If someone else could erase that for me, that would be great. But our VSA TAD, so Veritas Scholars Academy Teacher Appreciation Committee, they actually spend time raising funds for our teachers to be able to attend our big gathering at the end of the school year. So it's really, it's not just a get together and have leadership, but it's also drawing the school in and showing our teachers how much we love them. And then our yearbook staff do a phenomenal job of putting together our legato, our yearbook every single year. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with these different leadership opportunities, but they gain skills that they do not normally gain in just a standard classroom environment, and they're able to be mentored in their leadership as well. Now, our next screen is going to talk about travel. So one of the benefits of having a school like Veritas is we find in the classical education, we don't want the students just to read a book about a topic or maybe have a class discussion, but anytime we can provide an opportunity for them to actually see a piece of artwork in person or to visit a historical site or to walk where Christ walked, we want to provide those things. So we do have a field trip and a mission trip every year. Now that all of the travel restrictions seem to be pretty well left over from COVID, we do plan to have 2 trips per year. So our field trip for this coming year is to France and Belgium. And we will fly out of Newark, New Jersey. So our students from all over the world will come to Newark if they are able to. If they're coming to Europe from Europe, we don't expect them to fly to the US and then back to Europe, but we allow everyone to come together, and then we like to travel together as much as possible. So we will gather as a group in Newark, we will fly to Europe, we will meet our tour guide over there, and then we'll have just this amazing trip that is focused on art and history and the language, of course, French. And so the experiences that they get to have over there are just really, really wonderful. It's a great educational experience. And then again, it builds community because you're going to basically be living around your classmates and around their parents and our chaperones for 7 to 10 days. Mission trips they are educational just because of the very nature of going somewhere else and seeing a different culture. But our mission trips are really geared towards service. How do we identify a group of people with children? We'd love to work with children. How do we identify a group of children or a group that works with children and serve them? We're not going to go and spend an entire summer, this coming summer, over in Kenya, but we'll spend those roughly 9 days over there seeing how we can minister to these kids, whether it's reading a book with them or tutoring them or playing games, sports, having kind of like vacation Bible school type activities with them. So our goal isn't just to look inwardly all the time. We want to make sure that we are also looking out so that we can identify people that we can love the way Christ would have us to love them. So those opportunities are there. When we have students who travel without parents, which does happen occasionally, we do have age requirements for that because we don't want to take a 10-year-old overseas without a guardian. So if you are ever interested in any information like that, again, being part of our Veritas Scholars Academy is a great way to be introduced not only to great academics, but also great experiences. And I will end this discussion about community and great experiences by talking about our end of year gathering. We call it EOYG for short. So EOYG, as you can see from the pictures up here, it incorporates students of all ages. We're going to have families that come to this gathering in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It starts right after Memorial Day, and then it's going to continue through that first weekend in June. And these students are going to come from all over. We've had students travel to graduate with us from Australia. We've had students that come from Asia. Of course, we have a lot of students that come from here in the United States, and their families will come. And it is a time for these students to discover something that they would not normally understand just seeing this much of a person. And it becomes a little bit of a joke, but they're really amazed that they have legs. And I know that sounds a little bit silly, but when they get to see each other in person and they can see like how I never thought you were this tall, or I never thought you were that not tall. It is a fun experience for them. And so at end of year gathering, we do things like field day. We've had scavenger hunts. We have picnics. They might go see a play. They might travel to another city for a day trip. We have, as you can see in the picture with the large group of students kind of making that cone shape, that's a picnic that we have as we get toward the middle of the week. And then, of course, we do have graduation, as Susan had mentioned a little bit earlier. So end of year gathering isn't just for our graduates, although we want to honor them and we want to pay special tribute to them during this time, but it's for kids of all ages, and they just love being together. They love hanging out. They love spending that time together and getting to know one another beyond what they would do in a classroom. So when we talk about opportunities that we provide for community, it does extend way past the classroom, and it's really just a beautiful thing to see how all of these relationships develop. With that, I am going to turn the slides over to Rebecca Tunstall. She is our Manager of Diploma Services.
Thank you so much, Laura. I see where we are time-wise, so I'll get us to the end quickly. If you have a moment and you have some questions, feel free to add them in that Q&A pod, and we'll make sure we get to them right here in just a moment. I wanted to quickly show you here up on the screen some of our summer courses that we have available. I know you've heard some of them mentioned. I think Susan mentioned biotechnology. You can see our Summer A, our Summer B, and our Summer C sessions. Our Summer A and B are both 6-week courses. I love, as a teacher here at Veritas, I love the opportunity to teach a summer course. It's such an intense period of time. You're with a group of students, but you really get to know them. You get to dive into the material, and it's really exciting. We also have Summer C, that if you're thinking 6 weeks for all that content may not be for our family, well, Summer C may be a great option. It's something that extends over 12 weeks in shorter windows of time. Instead of 3 hours, you have 1.5-hour sessions that are pieced out over the entirety of the summer. It's a great opportunity for students to really get to know one another and to really dive into the incredible curriculum that we have. As we're wrapping up, I don't know what brought all of you here today. Some of you may be just wondering, is homeschooling even right for me? Some of you may be considering about, is classical the method for me? Maybe you already know a ton and you've done your research and you're here just wanting to hear a little bit more. But whatever brought you here, we're really glad you're here. And we know Veritas could be for you, whether that's taking a few courses, whether that's taking our self-paced classes, or whether that's our full-time diploma program. We would be really excited to have you here. I started here 8 years ago as a teacher and fell in love with Veritas. At that point, my son had just been born. Thus the transition to a virtual space and the opportunity that it provided to still be able to teach. And I fell in love with our students and the faculty that I got to work with, this incredible group of people who were pulled together. And then in 2002, I remember reaching out to Susan before I even knew anything about what these academic advisors were. And she shared with me her story and shared with me homeschooling and how it might be the right fit for my family. And now I get to watch my son take courses here at Veritas. It's such an incredible experience. And I really encourage you to continue coming to sessions, learning more, figuring out if this is the right fit for you. I want to read a quick testimony and then open the floor for questions and answers. This is from Tracy, who's a longtime parent at our school. She said, we received our yearbook and I was amazed to realize that we have had 47 different teachers during our 5 short years at Veritas. From my 2 graduates, Elizabeth and Luke, down to my 5th grader, words cannot express what these 47 humans have meant to us. They have walked with us through a life-altering medical diagnosis, offered advice and insights about significant learning challenges, fostered our love of the arts, encouraged us to continue pursuing our goals past the point when many quit, and most of all, pointed us to Christ at every turn. These people are rock stars. And that is our desire. For the students who come in, for the parents that we interact with, no matter what, our desire is to point them towards Christ through a method of education that we just really believe in. And so I want to invite everyone back up and take some questions if you have them. We also are going to put in the Q&A pod, as promised at the beginning by Dr. Cannon, the opportunity to win a free 1-year scholarship to VSA, which is an incredible opportunity. The link will be in the Q&A pod for you to click on. It'll also be emailed out with the video recording of this in case there's anything you want to watch again, or if there's anyone you'd like to share it with who wasn't able to be here today. I don't see any questions, which just means we must have covered all of those questions that you had already. And although I know that that is probably not the case, the communication doesn't have to stop here. We have incredible family consultants who really, really know their stuff. They're ready to talk to you and to share with you whatever information you need to know about our program and how exactly VSA can fit into your family and how you can join ours. We're really excited that you were here and we thank you so much for your time. Have a great night, everyone.